Ever look at something you just wrote, maybe a high-stakes email, an essay, or a pitch, and think, wow, this sounds completely robotic? You know exactly what you want to say, but the words on the page just feel clunky and disjointed. Well, you're definitely in the right place. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we are going to completely level up your communication skills. We'll be breaking down the literal mechanics of language to show you exactly how to craft incredibly compelling arguments, write complaints that actually work, and pull deep meaning out of complex texts. All right, here's our roadmap for today. We'll cover the art of sentence synthesis, crafting winning arguments, making effective complaints, and we'll wrap up by testing your comprehension. Let's get things off with part 1, the art of sentence synthesis. Sentence synthesis is literally the secret sauce for fixing that disconnected, repetitive writing style that makes readers tune out. Listen to the difference here. You could say, he was tired, he went to sleep. I mean, it's factually correct, sure, but it reads a bit like a telegram, right? But what if we change it to, being tired, he went to sleep? See how that works? By just tossing in a participle, we combine two choppy, simple sentences into one, and the flow of information is instantly smoother and just far more sophisticated. As you start connecting ideas, think of conjunctions as your absolute best cheat sheet for building compound sentences. It's all about the purpose of your connection. Are you just adding some info? Use a cumulative conjunction, like and. Showing a contrast? You'll want an adversative, like but or nevertheless. If you're offering choices, you need an alternative, like or. And if you're stating a result, you go with an illative conjunction, like therefore. Honestly, just picking the right tool for the job instantly elevates your writing. But hey, we can push way beyond basic compound sentences and build truly complex ones. By using subordinate clauses, we get to add these rich, nuanced details. Take an adverb clause, for example. You can use it to specify a strict condition, like saying someone cannot pass unless they work hard. Or it can give a core reason, like saying someone is moving to Japan because they wish to become a doctor. These clauses let your writing reflect the actual complexity of what's in your head. Okay, moving right along to part 2, crafting a winning argument. So, you've got these great sentences now, but how do you structure them? If you actually want to convince someone of your point, you can't just throw random facts at them. The ideal setup for an argumentative composition is this very deliberate, simple 3-step process. First up, the introduction, just a brief lead-in stating why the subject even matters. Second is the body, where you dedicate paragraphs to presenting arguments both for and against. And third, the conclusion. But don't just summarize here. You need to deliver a mature opinion based entirely on the arguments you just laid out. Let's actually put this into practice with a classic debate from our source text, motor cars versus public transport. Mapping out your points before you even start writing is huge. Notice how for every single aspect, like convenience, health hazards, and fuel, you need distinct for and against points. By contrasting the individual freedom of owning a car with the frustrating reality of traffic congestion, you prove to your reader that you've looked at the whole picture. Planning it out like this is exactly what separates a chaotic rant from an undeniable argument. Which brings us to section 3, how to complain effectively. Look, we all end up in situations where we have to complain, but how do we do it without sounding completely unhinged? Check out this quote from a sample letter about a neighbor running a super loud motor repair workshop late at night. The writer doesn't scream, they don't threaten to sue, they simply say, "Although I have no wish to hinder the running of your business, I request you to ensure that the noise level is reduced." It's brilliant. It proves that a calm, sensible, and polite tone is basically a superpower. It shows you're just a reasonable person making a totally reasonable request. To nail that perfect tone every time, there's a foolproof 3-paragraph formula. Paragraph 1, make a general reference to whatever the complainant is about. Paragraph 2, give the specific details of the cause and explain the actual effects, like how your kids literally can't sleep, but without exaggerating. Paragraph 3, make a clear, sensible request for action. Stick to these steps and your complaint stays realistic, tactful, and way more likely to actually get fixed instead of just making the other person defensive. Finally, we've made it to section 4, testing your comprehension. Now we're going to flip the script entirely and analyze a real-world text. We've got this fascinating practice passage focusing on the Yukon River. Now, at first glance, I know, this might just look like a dry geography lesson about a river up in Canada and Alaska. But if you read closer, it's actually this brilliant masterclass in reading comprehension. The author uses highly structured paragraphs to build this incredibly complex narrative about how everything in nature is totally interconnected. Take the salmon, for instance. The text vividly tracks their incredible cyclical journey. They mature out in the ocean, migrate thousands of kilometers upstream to spawn, the eggs hatch in the freshwater, and eventually those little fish swim all the way back downstream so the whole cycle can begin again. By following this timeline, we realize this isn't just a river flowing one way into the sea. Biological life creates this massive two-way movement that is literally the foundation of the entire ecosystem. And here is the absolute coolest part: the concept of a fertilizing pulse. The salmon aren't just fish swimming around. In biogeochemical terms, they are essentially the nutrient delivery system for the nitrogen cycle of the entire boreal forest. They bring nutrients from the ocean upstream, literally feeding the bears, the eagles, and even the surrounding plant life. But then, the text throws a bit of a curveball. There's a dramatic shift in tone as the author introduces the severe impacts of climate change on this delicate balance. It points out how thawing permafrost is releasing so much heavy metal that tributaries are turning bright orange. The waters are warming up, which hurts the cold water salmon, and wildly enough, unexpected species like mountain lions are suddenly showing up further upriver where they have literally never been seen before. It's a text that forces us to look way past the literal words on the page to grasp the wider implications. And it ends with this fantastic, really provocative challenge straight from the practice paper. How is the Yukon a lung for the Arctic region? Think about that. Think about the water, the ice, the nutrients constantly moving back and forth between the Bering Sea and the inland forests, breathing life in and out. So I'm going to leave you with that thought. I challenge you to use the sentence synthesis and the argumentative structure we've practiced today to craft your own perfectly structured answer to that question. Thanks so much for hanging out with me on this explainer, and happy writing.